In this presentation, we are looking at learning aim D, carrying out teaching and learning strategies for sports skills, but specifically D3 in the spec. So D3 works on factors affecting choice of learning style and learning styles as a whole. Initially, there are a number of factors that affect the choice of learning style adopted by the teacher. This includes the personality of the teacher, the personality of the learners, the skill level of the learners, the size of the group, the type of skill that you are teaching, the time available, and the resources available. You need to include all of these bullet points in your lesson plan or your assignment. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about them. They're quite straightforward. You need to go away and research how they might affect the learning styles adopted by the teacher in a lesson. Okay, so we've got 4 different styles of teaching that we're going to talk about today. This is a really quick overview, and the styles of teaching were created by Mosston and Ashworth in 1986. These guys come up with the idea of these 4 styles of teaching. There are others, and these were their main 4. And these are the 4 that we will be talking about today. If you want to read slightly more, it would be worth pausing the slide now. So firstly, we have command style. In this style, the teacher makes all the major decisions. The learner is only required to follow instructions. The learner does not make any decisions. Conforming behavior is the result of this style of teaching, and all students respond in the same way. So, for example, I often use the command style of teaching in javelin lessons, and I'll talk about why in a second. So we arrive at the point for evaluation. Remember the distinction standard. Some of the advantages: pupils learn quickly. It ensures safety of a potentially dangerous situation. It's easy for the teacher to gauge the standard of the performance as everyone is doing the same task. So if I just go back to ensures the safety of potentially dangerous situations, I mentioned about javelin lessons. In a javelin lesson, there is a potential chance of danger, and it could result in a student being significantly injured if the teacher or the coach involved in the leading of that lesson does not control the lesson in the right way. So we often use command style in those type of lessons. To give you a further example, when we work in javelin lessons, we might work in pairs. We set up a safety line, so one person stands behind the safety line, and we also set up a throwing line. The person that's about to perform the skill of throwing the javelin stands at the throwing line. The people behind the safety line are not allowed into the area that you've dedicated to the throwing area, and the people in the throwing area are not allowed to go past that safety line during their technique of their throw. Once everyone is ready to throw, the teacher may then say, you're allowed to throw on my whistle or on my command. The performers perform the javelin throw at that time, and the teacher has given the instruction that all of the performers can collect once they realise that it's safe. What happens quite often in a group setting of javelin lessons is people throw at different times, so you have to emphasise the performers are only allowed to collect the javelin once the teacher says. The teacher stands in a position where they can see the whole class and assesses that everyone has thrown, and then it's therefore safe to go and collect. So it's really good to use. Disadvantages: all the thinking is taken away from the learner, so the learner will not know how to react to a situation. It doesn't help to develop a schema. It doesn't help to create amateurs with an understanding of why they are doing a certain skill. So in the long run, it's detrimental. This method does not fully stimulate or challenge every pupil, and the method does not cater for different abilities in one group. Command style, definitely valid, definitely need it. However, only in certain situations. Then we have the reciprocal style. This involves the learner working in pairs. One is the doer, the other is the observer or the coach. The task is set out by the teacher, and the points of the correct technique or tactics are given to the observer by the teacher. The doer then goes away and practices, the observer watches and then gives feedback. This is a style that's often adopted with newly qualified teachers because it gives them security in subject knowledge, because you have previously given the content of the technique to the person that is the observer. Throughout the lesson, those roles might swap, so you might swap them over. And it's essential that you do that, because the observer may become bored if you don't. As I said, this can be pre-prepared, so you might even use a piece of paper with the teaching points on it as your reciprocal style. That saves you time in delivering teaching points all the time. And it also means that the observer has a constant document to refer back to. So to give an example, we might have someone looking at badminton serving technique. They've got a document with the correct technique on it in terms of the grip and the technique of the serve. We're asking the performer to play and the observer to watch the serving technique specifically. There might be a tick box exercise to say whether the person's meeting all of the teaching points given. So advantages. The advantages are that it improves personal and social skills. You get that interaction. You have a chance to talk to your partner and develop those skills. It develops evaluative and performance skills. So we're looking at evaluation, what is good, what isn't so good. And learners feel more in control of their actions and liable to be more motivated. The disadvantages are the learner may not be giving the doer correct feedback. If it's a friend and there's some quite strong personalities in the friendship, it might be that one person doesn't feel as confident as giving negative feedback or feedback for improvement to the person that they're working with. The other disadvantage that is not on there is if you are going to prepare a document prior to the lesson, it can be incredibly time consuming, and there can also be a lot of paper flying around the lesson where it might not necessarily need to. Okay, the next one, guided discovery. Guided discovery, this is where the teacher sets a problem and leads the pupil to the correct answer. For example, in cricket, what stroke should you play to a short pitch delivery outside leg stump? That means that the ball is going to bounce up high and it's going to bounce towards the backside of your body. So here, the teacher is looking for the student to play a hook shot or a pull shot. And the teacher tries to get the correct answer by firstly giving students the opportunity to play different shots in that given situation. So there'll be a bowler or a bowling machine bowling that technique of the short pitch delivery outside leg stump. It's really important that that happens. From there, the teacher will ask questions. Do you play with straight or horizontal bat? How do you generate the power? How do you keep it down? And hopefully, by this experience, the performer will come to a decision on the correct answer. So some of the advantages of that are the learner develops the ability to solve problems, really good going into other situations, being adaptable, developing schema. And consequently, when faced with a new problem, he or she, she, has the ability to solve it. It stimulates the learners mentally and physically. The learners become more independent and ceases to look for the teacher for answers. The learner is fully charged, challenged and well motivated. It can lead to transfer of learning. Again, we spoke about schema, when the learner discovers similarities between skills and game situations. So really good at developing skills. Once you've got that amateur, the really low grassroots ability, we can develop it by using guided discovery. Disadvantages: the method can be time consuming and slower than command style, and it is difficult to teach for a textbook performance since learners find their own answers, which may be close to but not quite the same as a textbook. So if you're looking at the cricket example, there's a performer, an elite performer called Malinga. Malinga's technique is on the boundaries of the rules. However, he's been a prolific bowler. If in a lesson we looked for the correct textbook technique, his technique may not be the one that we were looking for. However, this opportunity has given him the chance to develop this technique within the rules and become successful. Problem solving. Here, the teacher sets the problem and the learner finds the answer. Learners are guided towards a correct answer, but simply help to find it. So, for example, in gymnastics, find a balance on one foot and one hand. Students are then allowed to go away and do that. In basketball, 1v1, find a way of dribbling past your opponent. So problem solving is really good for creative sports or creative situations in sports such as set plays, or 1v1 allows an individual to be more thoughtful in the process of the problem solving. I often use this in gymnastics a lot, so I'll give the class a routine to complete. In your routine, you might have to have one paired balance, one group balance, two different styles of rolls, and entrance and exits to each of those different transitions. The group then go away and try to solve that problem. How can they do that? I might also include the reciprocal style of teaching in that lesson. I might give them some tools to build that answer. So I might give them information about what a good paired balance looks like or what a group balance looks like, so they can go away, look at it, and then bring that back in to the situation so they can solve the problem. So advantages. Advantages are that it develops autonomy. It allows the performers to be thoughtful and have a creative influence on their performance. It helps them to adapt, which also means that they build schema. The performers are fully motivated. They're involved in the process, which is great. And it's great to use when you have an experienced performer. So someone that has developed the foundations of the skills and is now looking to expand upon them. Disadvantages are, it is incredibly time consuming. You might set a problem and one group can come to it quite quickly, but another group may take time. So be aware and plan that into your lesson. Be aware that some students might find the answer quickly and you'll need to help them, or be aware that some students might take their time and it's okay. However, how are you going to support them? Performers may arrive at the outcome which is not best suited to the situation, particularly in things like the 1v1 example in basketball or tactics in sports. Because students may not have the full understanding of the game situation or full knowledge of what the skills and game actually is asking for, it might mean that they arrive to an answer that is not correct. And it might mean that in the short term, they'll get found out. So you need to make sure that the fundamentals, the foundations of knowledge are there before you really go into problem solving. Performers must have that prior knowledge. If they don't have it, it can end up in your lesson being unsuccessful. So they're the four main ones that we're going to be looking at. I've given you advantages and disadvantages. It's really important you add to each advantage and disadvantage and say why. It's not acceptable just to bullet point an advantage and a disadvantage. Yes, it provides some evaluative tools. However, it doesn't allow you to go into detail to show that you are fully a distinction standard student. So, for example, I gave a really detailed explanation as to why performers arriving at an outcome which may not be the best possible solution is a disadvantage, and I expanded on why it's a disadvantage. I applied it to the situation, and that's what you must do.